So episode 9 was all over the place, and I definitely got caught off guard, child, between bad credit and judgments from the past. I didn't know what to think. So welcome to my channel, Chrissy is Watching, where I review reality TV, pop culture, and trending topics. Don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. But let's get into episode 9 of Love is Blind, because it did not disappoint. The episode starts with couples getting their marriage licenses. And then we move to the bridal fittings and the groom fittings, and we see Vanessa and Nick show up for the couples at their respective places. So for the bridal fitting, Lydia brings her mom, somebody from the pod, her bestie, and her brother. And I have to say, I really love her brother's energy. Even back when he met Milton at the dinner, he just was bringing a lot of just good vibes and positivity. So it's nice to see him make an appearance again. Stacy brings her mom, who hasn't even seen the dresses on Stacy yet, and she's already crying. So I thought that was really cute. Now on the groom side, Izzy brought his mom and his friends, and Milton brought his friends to the groom fitting as well. So Stacy's mom makes a cameo, and she says how she really loves Izzy's energy, and he's already part of the family. So Stacy goes off to try on her dresses, and she says she wants something that's going to catch her eye and isn't basic. But the dress she picked out to me seemed a little plain. Like, it seemed a little basic, but it might be one of them things where it looks better in person. So, you know, maybe it'll look better later or look better the day of. But I thought it just wasn't really that extravagant. But maybe she wanted an understated look. And then we move to Milton talking to Izzy's mom and his friends about how Lydia is so passionate and how he feels connected to her. So, you know, he's waiting for his fitting, and he makes a little joke about, you know, I got to make sure the pants is long enough, because I know he's like 6'5", 6'7", something like that. Now Lydia tries on her dress, and I have to say, I really felt like her dress was really stunning. It fit her so well, and she starts to cry, which is not a surprise. I think Lydia has cried in pretty much every episode this season of Love is Blind. Her and her mom have this tearful exchange, and she talks about, you know, how emotional she is that she's finally found her husband, and how she prayed so much for this, and she asked the universe, and now she's standing here in her wedding dress. So after all that, the timeline moves forward to 2 days before the wedding, and Izzy surprises Stacy with a romantic day at the airport, where he books a private little small jet and takes her on a flight. Because he heard from, you know, from her and her family that she loves to fly. So he's like trying to put in his best effort to be there and show up for her. And, you know, like he says, he wants to fight for the relationship and this and that. After they're done their flight, he tops it off with a romantic dinner right there at the airport. So they have a little dinner for two, and they have a nice little exchange, and then they start slow dancing together, which I thought was cute. But then I was like thinking to myself, do they have music playing? Like, or are they just slow dancing to no music? I don't know. That's just something I'd be thinking about. But of course they had music playing over the episode, but in real life, when they were slow dancing, did they have music? It's just something that, I don't know, I just was wondering. But at the dinner, I thought was really strange was after Stacy tells Izzy yet again how calming he is and how he balances her and this and that, Izzy then tells her that a lot of his family won't be at the wedding. I thought that was strange, but he says the reason for this is because he doesn't want people there who are going to judge him, and he feels like those people that he didn't invite would be thinking or feeling some type of way about it, so he just didn't want to include them. So Stacy is like, well, you know, my family loves you, and, you know, they embrace you. And he's like, well, that's one of the things I'm looking forward to in marrying you, is that I'm going to be able to get this large family as well. But I thought that was just a little strange, you know. So I'm wondering for the next episode, who is going to be there on his side? I mean, he said his mom is going to be there, but who else is going to be there? Then we move on to Milton meeting his sister for lunch, and immediately the sister asks, you know, what did Lydia think about the family? And Milton says, well, she thought that y'all were intense, but, you know, y'all are intense. And then he goes into how the dynamic she has with her family is so different from the dynamic he has with his family. Basically saying they're so giving and they're so emotional. And the sister is like, well, we're giving and we're emotional as well. But he's like, no, not like them. Like, they talk every day. We're not really like that. But I could tell, if you could see this sister's facial expression, she is still not convinced from the last episode that Milton is making the right decision. And she's not convinced that Lydia is really the person for him. You can see it all over her face. I mean, she's the most She looks the most unfazed I think anybody could ever look at any point in any time. So she keeps pressing him and saying, you know, I think it's odd that you didn't consider the family when you were making this decision. And he was like, well, whether I would have considered the family or not, I still would have made my own decision regardless. So I don't know what Milton is going to have to say to convince his sister and his family that he's ready for this, but I don't even think there's something that he could say at this point. I think she's just going to continue to feel how she does feel about it. There's no changing of her mind. So he flat out asked her, are you still coming to the wedding? And she unenthusiastically says, yeah, we'll be there. You know, I mean, she might as well say, yeah, we'll see you at Taco Bell, or, you know, yeah, you know, we'll see you on the playground. Like, she's just not excited at all. But I hope she does show up for the wedding. So then we have the next day, Stacy and Izzy are in the apartment. And immediately when you see this scene, you can see that Stacy is a little irritated about something. And Izzy is like, hey, what's going on? How do you feel about the conversation we had? And Stacy just comes out and says, I'm feeling like I don't trust you, you know, about the credit card stuff. So here we find out that Izzy has some little financial situations going on, and he didn't tell Stacy about it. So she's like, you know, this is making me really nervous, and I haven't seen her this nervous since the paper plates and plastic cups conversation. So, you know, she's on edge, like, what else could you possibly be hiding? You know, why didn't you tell me about this credit card stuff? And he says, well, I just felt like there was never the right time, and it was always a timing thing. And, you know, this was a more formal conversation. And she's like, well, we could have talked about this any other time. And so he's like, no, you know, it wasn't even that much money. It was like $3,500. So, you know, I could tell and looking at him that he felt some shame about it. You know, he felt really nervous about it. You know, his legs were shaking, and he was just kind of trying to see where Stacy was at. But they ended up hugging it out and making some little jokes about how they both was funky, stinking, or whatever. You know, these little jokes that seem to bond them back to each other time and time again. You know, in the pods, he always says he felt like she was so funny and lighthearted, and she was so much fun. So I feel like these jokes really help to bring them back together when they're having hard times. So you see that play out in this scene. But I have to say, to have that kind of tension the day before the wedding and finding out about the bad credit, I didn't think that was the greatest timing. Next scene, we have Milton and Lydia going to some type of gem museum, and he set up a romantic dinner for her there as well. Now, when they get there and they sit down, Lydia decides to ask him, how is your vision of what a wife should be? And Milton drops the bomb that, well, you're not exactly who I thought you was in the pods. And she's like, what do you mean? And he's like, you know, you wake up really cranky. And she's like, what are you talking about? He was like, yeah, I don't know. You wake up in bad moods. And she's like, well, I don't know. That's no reason. There is a reason for that. You know, I don't just wake up for no reason. So she goes into how basically she feels like Milton doesn't pick up after himself, and he doesn't keep a clean house and this and that. And she doesn't want to keep reminding him about that. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to try to do better. You know, it was just a few towels here and there, but I'm going to try to pick up after myself. And she says, well, I'm wondering if the things that I tell you that make me upset, you're going to take serious. Well, then Milton brings up the fact that he didn't like how she handled the situation with Uche, and how he feels like he can't even talk to her about how he feels about certain things because she's going to get so emotional and defensive. And what does she do? Get emotional and defensive. So she gets quiet, and she basically says, you know, I feel proud about how I handled the situation, and she doesn't feel he's understanding her point of view. And he says he doesn't feel that she listens to him, and he doesn't like having arguments or disagreements. And she's like, well, you think I do? He's like, actually, I don't know if you do or not. And she was like, well, if you don't know, then you don't know me. And he was like, well, you know, you calling Uche an asshole and all this. He basically felt like that was too much. She's like, well, he is one. And he says, well, thanks for telling me for a millionth time. Well, she had enough. She gets up, she storms off, she goes off in the corner, kneeling down in the corner, crying and carrying on. She take a few minutes to gather herself, and then she comes back to the table, sniffling and crying yet again. I don't know one episode this season that she has not cried in. So Milton automatically apologizes and says, you know, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. And she says, well, I'm sorry I didn't abide by your expectations, which I felt like that was a bit of a backdoor apology. Like, she wasn't really trying to apologize. She just was trying to bring it back up again. And she says, well, you know, I'm sorry for how I handled it, but I am passionate and I am emotional. So, you know, she's doubling down on who she is. But they end up ending the conversation by saying they love each other and, you know, they have a little tender handhold embrace at the end. And I kept wondering, what were they eating? I don't know, something about that scene that, I don't know, my eyes just went down to the plate and was like, are they eating some kind of pasta dish? I don't know. But anyway, next week we're going to see them at the altar, bad credit, judgments, and past situations and all. Do you think they're going to make it to the altar? I'll meet you in the comments so we can discuss this week's episodes, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.